So he says sometimes the governor or the ruler, when they realize that they have strength, then at that time, if the treaty is at an end, then they can display their force to get out of oppression or a situation where it's disadvantage to them. So he says, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when the Ashhur al-Hurum ends, so there were 4 months that the Arabs, I mean, there's a khilaf, most of the ulama consider them abrogated, but actually some of them did consider them to be, that they should be honored. And those are the 4 months that are sacred months. And they were months that the Arabs would not fight during those months. And one of the hikmah, the wisdoms behind that, is that they learned a sense of the hurma of something, the sanctity of something, that there are things that are sanctified in the world. And the haram, the sanctuary, right, is for that reason. A woman is called a hurma in the Arabic language, one of the words for woman, which is inviolable. See, so it has different meanings. So haram, right, tends to mean impermissible, but the deep meaning of the word has to do with sanctity, that something is beyond the pale, to use the English term. It's something that you don't go, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَالْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. And so later in that hadith he says that if you go around them, the shubuhat, he said it's like the hima of a king. It's like a place that's protected by a king. And so in essence, the haram are those areas, those are the hima of Allah. They're His protected areas. No, you can't drink alcohol, you can't eat pig, you can't steal, you can't murder, you can't do these things, you can't disrespect people, you can't oppress people. Those are all the areas of hurma, of sanctity, inviolability. And so the 4 months were to teach them that. And they took them very seriously, interestingly enough. I mean, they really did consider it a very egregious enormity to violate those months. So it says because they made a treaty, and so once that treaty ended, then you can fight the pagans wherever they are, right? And this is because they had attacked them. So because استقيموا لهم استقام لكم, you know, be upright for them as long as they're upright for you. But if they break their oaths, then at that point, and that's why in the Islamic law, when you come into a non-Muslim country, if you have a visa, if you come into a non-Muslim country, you are obliged to obey all the laws of the country. If you break the law, it's actually haram. It's haram. And Ibn Abi Zayd, he has a famous book of issues. He goes into all these tafri'at, they call them, like just these branches. And one of the questions that was asked in that book was about Muslims that go into the European countries. Then it was called like Rome. They go into the European countries. Are they obliged to obey the laws? And then the answer was yes, as long as the government does not act treacherously towards you. So it's a two-way street. So as long as the government hasn't oppressed you or done anything to you. But then he said that even if the ghawgha, like the rabble of those people, if they attack you because you're Muslim, you still have to obey the laws. Because it wasn't from the government, it was from outlaws, right? Brigands, things like that. Or just rabble. Like there are rabble. There's a whole bunch of words for rabble in Arabic. Right? Ra'a, ghawgha, you know, hamaj. They have a whole bunch. And these are the low people that don't have respect for others. وكذلك حق العقل إذا قوي على قوى النفس ألا يداهنها. And like that is the duty of the intellect. If it becomes strong over the power of these, you know, these appetitive soul and the irascible soul, then there's no mudahana. You know, mudahana is where you know, the Arabs say, darihim ma dumta fi darihim, go along with them as long as you're in their abode. You know, so mudahana is where there's kind of a stroking one another. You know, like, I'm not going to upset you, you don't upset me. Mudahana, yudahinuhu. So he's saying that, and then he says, وَكَمَا أَنَّ شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يَضْعُفُ كَيْدُهُم عَمَّنْ تَحَصَّنَ بِالْإِيمَانِ وَاسْتَعَاذَ بِاللَّهِ وَتَقَوَّى عَلَى مَنْ وَالَاهُ كما قال الله تعالى إنما سلطانه على الذين يتولونه والذين هم به مشركون. So just as the shayateen al-ins and the jinn, human shaitans, human demons and spirit demons, their plots get weak, their strategies are weakened with somebody who's fortified with faith. وَاسْتَعَاذَ بِاللَّهِ, and who seeks refuge in Allah, right? Or استعاذ Allah. So in the riwayah in Imam al-Bukhari, if he seeks refuge in Allah, then Allah gives him refuge, the wali of Allah. And that's why taking the wilayah of Allah is very important, you know, to put your faith in Allah and put your trust in Allah, because He's the only one Allah is the only one that can defeat your unseen enemies. If you rely on yourself, you can't overcome these things. And that's why it's really important, because one of the problems with people is they rely on themselves, like with addictions. The most successful addiction program in the world is the 12-step program. And the first step is to surrender to a higher authority. Like, I'm helpless. It's to admit that you are helpless. And that's one of the few programs that actually works for people, to do that. And that's what people have to do. If you rely on yourself, لا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين, the Prophet ﷺ made the dua, do not leave me to myself for even the glance of an eye. No filming other than the thing, if anybody's doing that. Yeah, and I'd appreciate if people they don't look at these talking about addictions, right? So then he says that the authority, Iblis's authority, is on those يتولونه. They make alliances with him. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِهِ مُشْرِكُونَ, or they associate with him. So that's really important. There's awliya of shaitan. Shaitan has awliya, just like the Rahman has awliya. And so he's saying that's where the authority lies. If you give him power, يتولونه, you're giving him wilaya over you by submitting to him. وكذلك يضعف كيد الهوى عن العقل إذا تقوى بالله. And like that, the plots or the strategies, the machinations of passions also weaken before reason if it's strengthened billah, through God. واستعاذ به, and they seek refuge in God. فحق العقل أن يستعيذ بالله من الهوى. So it's the duty of the intellect to seek refuge in God, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the passions, washarah, and from the, you know, sharah is like greed, but it tends to be more greed for food, sharaha. So sherihun is somebody who's a glutton, because the food is the source of the appetitive soul's power, and that's why fasting weakens it, and that's why you're able to do things during Ramadan that you're not able to do in other times when you're fasting, because it weakens it. The Prophet ﷺ said that it's like a wija, you know, that so it's something that will protect you from your own human frailty and weaknesses by weakening the strength of the appetitive soul. So then he says, wal-hirs, covetousness, wal-amal, and also just procrastination, hope that you can, down the road, things will change. Like the brothers of Yusuf, they said, oh, let's get rid of Yusuf and then we'll become righteous. You know, there's people that have that attitude that I'm going to become righteous down the road. So he says, And then when Ibrahim alayhi salam said, رَبِّ يَجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. Make this city safe. So again, he's using this analogy that make my soul safe. That's what Raghib's doing. He's using this as an analogy. So if you analogize the human being as a city-state, and Ibrahim sets up he's in his city, he's saying, make Mecca a safe place and avoid and divert me and my offspring from worshiping the idols. Well, what are the idols? For him, for Raghib, he's saying, القوة الشهوية القوة الغضبية. You know, it's ما أبغض معبودا عند الله. You know, the worst thing that's worshipped with Allah is al-hawa. So he's using it as an analogy for that. فالقوة الرديئة والإرادات الدنيئة في ذات الإنسان جارية مجرى الأصنام. So these low impulses and these contemptible volitions in the essence of the human being have the same place as the idols, the outward idols, because you're obeying false gods. If you're disobeying Allah by obeying your nafs hawa shaitan, then you've taken them as the authority and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's what he's saying, that وَقَلَّمَا تَنْفَكُ نَفْسُ الْإِنسَانَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهَا كَمَا قَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُم بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُم مُشْرِكُونَ. And then he says, and it is rare for the soul of a human being to be free from their worship. And this is what Allah means when he says that most of them do not believe in Allah without them associating with Allah. So this is a really profound psychological approach to just, you can look at the outward meanings of all these things, and they're valid. And that's the beauty of, Ahmad Zarruq said the difference between the Batiniya and the Ahl Sunnah is the Batiniya reject the outward meanings and interpret it with these inward meanings. He said Ahl Sunnah accept both, that it has both meanings, the outward and the inward. Huwa al-awwal wal-akhir wal-zahir wal-batin. So there's the outward and the inward, and they have to be in a balance. So then he says, وَذَكَرُوا مَثَلًا آخَرَ فَقَالُوا كُلُّ إِنسَانٍ مَعْ بَدْنِهِ كَوَارٍ فِي بَلَدٍ قِيلَ لَهُ طَهِّرْ بَلَدَكَ مِنَ النَّجَاسَاتِ وَأَدِّبْ مَنْ يَقْبَلُ التَّأْدِيبَ مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَرُضْ مَنْ يَقْبَلُ الرِّيَاضَةَ مِنْ حَيَوَانَاتِهِ وَسِبَاعِهِ. So they also used another analogy, saying that every human being with his body is like the governor of a city. And it said to him, purify your city, clean your city up of all its filth and waste. And وَأَدِّبْ مَنْ يَقْبَلُ التَّأْدِيبَ مِنْ أَهْلِهِ, and discipline all of the citizens who are capable of being disciplined. وَرُضْ مَنْ يَقْبَلُ الرِّيَاضَةَ مِنْ حَيَوَانَاتِهِ وَسِبَاعِهِ, and then train those that are susceptible to training from the animals and the siba, meaning like the livestock and then the more wild animals. And some of them can be trained. We know that like lions can be trained. Lions are actually closer to dogs than cats, even though they go into the category of in the West, they're put in the same category as the cats. But the Prophet ﷺ called them dogs. And if you actually look at the lion, he's closer to a dog than a cat. Like they'll get up and they lick, they lick the person, and they can be trained in a way like the dogs can be trained. وَمَنْ عَاثَ فِيهِ وَلَمْ يَقْبَلِ التَّأْدِيبُ وَالرِّيَاضَةَ فَاحْبِسْهُ أَوْ اقْتُلْهُ وَلَكِنْ بِالْحَقِّ. And the one that sows corruption in it and doesn't accept any discipline or training, so jail him or kill him. Right? I mean, these are, in the 15th century in common law, in English common law, they had what was called outlawry, right? So the outlaw, because most places didn't have governments, and they used this common law here in the U.S., in what they called the West, where you didn't have governments still. As the westward move in the U.S., they would move west. So you had what were called the outlaws. right? And what an outlaw was a person who was encroaching on other people's persons and property. And they would be judged by the judge. Usually it was a minister in England. It was usually a religious authority. If they did not accept the judgment of the religious authority, they were declared outlaw. And at that point, it was dead or alive. So that's that whole wanted, dead or alive. So anybody could go kill that person because it was seen as you were relieving the society of somebody who has chosen to live outside of the laws of the society. So you were doing a favor to the other people because this person broke the social contract. So that's what he's saying. If your nafs is doing that, then that aspect of your nafs has become an outlaw, right? It's the uninvited guest that's disrupting the host's house, right? It's your abode. It's not your shahwa or your quwwat ghadabiyah's abode. It's your aql's abode. It's your heart's abode. That's what Allah, He's put your heart at the center of your being. And that's what's supposed to rule the roost. And if those other forces take over, you have to tame them. You have to bring them under control. And the pre-modern people, the ancients, did immense things to try to overcome them. Immense things. I mean, you read about the church fathers went off into the deserts. They would meditate and just trying to get rid of their appetites. And our tradition, our Prophet ﷺ, out of the mercy to humanity, gave us a much more balanced way. And that's one of the beauties of Islam, is that la rahbaniyata fil Islam. There's no monkhood in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, he married, he fasted, he broke his fast, right? He was the most balanced human being. But the devotional center of existence, if that's lost, then the enemies have taken over. Because we're not created here for frivolity. مَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُم مِّن رِزْقٍ. I didn't send you here for provision. Like, you get your provision, but that's not why you're here. So there's all these people, that's why they think that's why they're here, just to have their livelihoods and do that. But Allah says, no, I did not send you here for provision. That you have to do that. That's part of life. And the most intelligent people turn that into devotion. They do things, even for their livelihood, that have a devotional component. So then he says, but only don't kill the soul that Allah has sanctified except with right? So you don't want to, you have to be careful. And the best thing, I mentioned the other day about وَاسْلُكْ بِنَفْسِكَ سَبِيلَ الرِّفْقِ لِكَيْ يَكُونَ سَيْرُهَا بِالشَّوْقِ. Go easy on yourself so that your journey is with yearning. Because if you break the soul, then you've broken the beast that's supposed to take you. If you break the nafs, soul, not the ruh, the nafs. That's your riding beast to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't want to break it. You want to tame it. And this is what siyasa is. That's the essence of siyasa. Siyasa is to train an animal. So that's what governing is being able to herd cats. فإن عجزت عن تطهير عرصته من الأنجاس وعن تأديب طغاته ورياضة حيواناته وسباعه فلا تعجز عن صيانة نفسك من التلطخ بالنجاساته وعن الاحتراس من أن تفترسك سباعه وأن يسبيك طغاته حتى إذا لم تكن غالبا لم تكن مغلوبا. So then he says, if you're not capable of doing this, because it's very difficult and it's arduous, the arsa is, it's the threshold of the house. So what he's saying is that he's using that as an analogy for the lower aspects of the self, because that's only your threshold. It's to get you to the higher self. So if you're not capable of cleaning up the threshold of your house from its pollutants, the anjas, the foul things, and to discipline its transgressors, the tughat, and to train its animals and its predatory beasts, then at least don't be incapacitated from guarding yourself from becoming soiled with those foul things. وعن الاحتراس من أن تفترسك سباعه, and guarding yourself from being consumed by those predatory beasts, or to become captive of its transgressors. حتى إذا لم تكن غالبا لم تكن مغلوب. So at least it's a balance. You're neither overwhelmed by them, nor are you overwhelming them. So you don't, they're there and you're dealing with them. And this is where he's going to get into his analogy. So you're neither ghalib nor maghlub. And this is what he's talking about there is the path of salvation. At least, if you're going to have your appetites, if you're going to, don't let them destroy you. If you can't control them in the way that you should, if you can't overcome them, at least don't let them destroy you. فصار الناس في ذلك بين ثلاثة أصناف. So there are three categories of people here. صنف لم يفعل ما أمر به ولم يؤدي حق الإيالة متهاون فيما فوض إليه وجرح وأسر فصار عند ربه مع كونه مجروحا مأسورا ملوما مخذولا. So the first group are those who do not do what they were commanded to do, nor do they fulfill the duty of the iyala. The iyala is like it's like the authority of the government. So when you have authority over yourself and you're not fulfilling the duty that you have. متهاون فيما فوض إليه. So tahawun is you're just lackadaisical about it. You're not doing what you should be doing, what has been handed over to you as a responsibility. You're not fulfilling that responsibility because of your laziness. So then you become wounded and captive. So these lower appetites wound you and capture you. And so with your Lord, you become majruhan, ma'suran, injured, captive, maluman, blameworthy, makhdulan, and in a state where you don't have tawfiq. You're in a state of providential loss. And then the second group, the second category, صنف فعل ما أمر به وأدى حق الإيالة فصار عند ربه مأجورا مشكورا. They fulfill the rights of vicegerency that they've been given. And with their Lord, they are rewarded and shown gratitude. والصنف جدا تارة وقصر تارة جد تارة عفوا وقصر تارة. And the third category, they're serious sometimes and they fall short other times. فجرح وجرح. Sometimes they parry and they get the strike against the lower self, and other times they're stricken. غَرَبَ وَغُلِبَ. Sometimes and so this is harb sijal. This is called nafs al-lawwama. So he's talking about nafs al-amara bisu, nafs al-mutma'inna, and nafs al-lawwama. These are the terms that the Quran gives for these. So وغرب وغلب فهو كما قال تعالى وآخرون اعترفوا بذنوبهم خلطوا عملا صالحا وآخر سيئا. So these are those who admit their sins. They have mixed righteous deeds, virtuous deeds with vicious deeds or deeds lacking virtue. عسى الله أن يتوب عليهم. Perhaps God will give them repentance. إن الله غفور رحيم. Verily God is oft repenting, merciful, oft turning to his creation and merciful. وقال بعضهم الإنسان إذا اعتبر مع قوة التخيل وقوة الغضب وقوة الشهوة فمثله كمثل من بلي في سفره بصحبة ثلاثة اضطر إليهم حتى لا يمكنه أن يتفصى عنهم ويقضي سفره من دونهم فهو معهم كما قال الشاعر. So now he's going to strike an analogy of, we could look at a human being as in terms of إذا اعتبر من قوة التخيل, in terms of the imaginal potentiality of the human being, and also the quwwa al-ghadab and quwwa al-shahwa, the irascible and the appetitive aspects of his soul. So the analogy is the analogy of somebody who has gone on a journey and they're tested buliya fi safri. So there's an ibtila. They have a trial of having to travel in the company of 3, and they can't get out of their company. اضطر إليهم. They're compelled to travel with them. حتى لا يمكنه أن يتوصى عنهم. He won't be able to distance himself from these travelers. ويقضي سفره من دونهم, and to travel without them. فهو معهم. So he's with them whether he likes it or not. This is the journey. So he's talking about the journey of life. You're on this journey of life, and you're going to have these 3 companions, and you're just stuck with them on this journey. So what are they? And then he quotes the poet. وَمِن نَكِرِ الدُّنْيا is Mutanabbi, I think. Yeah, Mutanabbi. وَمِن نَكِرِ الدُّنْيا عَلَى الْحُرِّ أَنْ يَرَى عَدُوًّا لَهُ مَا مِنْ صَدَاقَتِهِ بُدُّ. This is a very famous line that Arabs, educated Arabs, almost all know. So from the unfortunate aspects of this lower world for a free man, for a hur, and the Arabs meant by hur, they didn't mean like what we mean today. They meant somebody who was, dignified and in control of his self. And yara aduwan, that he has to consider an enemy that he has no way out of his friendship. Because in life you're going to have people, it's like a boss that you can't stand, but you have to act friendly and be. I mean, this is life. You're going to have people, even in your own family, you're going to have somebody who just is really difficult, right? It's the uncle, nobody wants to come over for the holiday, but he comes anyway, and everybody is nice. So that's what he's talking about. So now he's going to use that as an analogy for these appetites that we have, these faculties in our own souls. فَيَا نَكِدَ الدُّنْيَا مَتَى أَنْتَ نَازِحٌ عَنِ الْحُرِّ حَتَّى يُقَارِبُهُ ضِدُّ. So he's saying, the trials of this world, when will you depart from this free man so that he can find the opposite, approach what's opposite, which is there's a Sudanese scholar who talked about the mar'a nakidiyya. So the mar'a nakidiyya, he said, people shouldn't be so upset about having a spouse. It goes male or female, a spouse that just gives you a hard time all the time. Because he said, actually, there's a lot of benefits to that mar'a nakidiyya. He said, one, you're always doing dhikr. Because you're like, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And then he said, and then you're always visiting your relatives. Because he said, I have to go out. So he goes on about that. So, فواحد أمامه هو له رقيب يحفظه وعين تكلأه لكنه ملق مباهت مموه يلفق الباطل تلفيقا ويخترق الزور اختلاقا فيخلط الكذب بالصدق والخطأ بالصواب. And he's a beautiful writer. He's a very, very nice writer. He has a 5-volume work called the Muhadarat of the Udaba, which is really stunning. But he was very, very erudite in Arabic literature. You'll find his style is, and he uses a lot of unusual words. So he says one of these enemies, he's in front of you. So he's going ahead of you. And he's raqib. He's on guard. He's watching to protect you. وَعَيْنٌ تَكْلَأُهُ. And he's like a spy, because ayn means eye, but it also means spy. So he's like a spy who's there to takla'uhu, is also to protect, to guard. لَكِنَّهُ مَلِقٌ. So he has tamalluq, is obsequiousness. Mubahitun, he's just, bahata yubahituhu is to like tell lies, but it's lies that, they're hard to believe. Mumawwihun. Mumawwah is a gilded, like in the Maliki fiqh they have mumawwah. In Khalil he talks about the plates that are gold plated. So mumawwah. So the mumawwih is the one who, he just embellishes things. He's not being straight. He's hiding something. And then yulafiqu al-batila talfiqa. So he's fabricating and conjuring up falsehoods. Yakhtariqu az-zura ikhtilaqa. Again, is another way of saying yulafiq. Yakhtariqu. I mean, khalaqa in Arabic means to create. But when it's applied to the human, it means to lie. So ikhtalaqa means to lie. It's because we don't create. We're not creators. That's why creative writing is one of the worst titles for a course ever. Because everything is mimesis. You know, it's all mimesis. We're not creative beings in that way. What we are is skillful and imaginative. So in that way, but creation, to create, is Allah's alone. He's the creator. He's the Khaliq. It's an unshared name. So then he says, so he mixes truth with falsehood. He mixes error with sawab, with what's correct. And then the second one, an yaminihi, is on your right side. Batishun za'irun. So batish is like somebody who's like a thug. Za'irun is malicious. So he's like a malicious thug. Yahmihi min a'adihi. He protects him from his enemies. لكنه كثير ما يغويه فيبور عامره. But he can lead him astray and destroy what's يبور عامره. The amir is it's what's cultivated. So he can destroy what you've cultivated. ويهيج هائجه. And he can instigate you. فلا يقمعه النصح. He's not controlled by sound advice. ولا يطأطئه الرفق. And he won't bow down to gentleness. كأنه نار في حطب. He's like fire in dry wood. أو سيل في صبب. Or he's like a flash flood coming down from an elevation. He has qarimun, if you have that edition. Should be qarmun. Yeah, qarimun is somebody who likes meat. There's a hadith in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. There's only 2 hadiths in the Muwatta about meat, and they're both negative. It's very interesting. But one of them, Omar saw this man buying meat every day. And he said to him, أَكُلُّ مَا اشْتَهَيْتَ اشْتَرَيْتَ? Like what, you just get hungry for meat and you go buy it? And he said, إِنِّي رَجُلٌ قَرِيمٌ. Like I'm carnivorous. Like I like meat. You know, like Afghan people, Arab people, they like meat. And so Umar radiallahu anhu said, أَخَافُ أَن تَكُونَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال فيهم أَذْهَبْتُمْ طَيِّبَاتِكُمْ فِي حَيَاتِكُمْ الدُّنْيَا وَاسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِهَا. That you'll be from those who have lost all of your blessings in this world and enjoyed them here, so you don't get them in after. So there's something in the pre-modern world called sumptuary laws, which are very interesting. So Islam has sumptuary laws. A sumptuary law is a law that prohibits things that are going to lead to too much luxury. And many, many societies had sumptuary laws. The Greeks had them because they were worried, especially the Spartans, because they were worried that people would get too lax. The Chinese had sumptuary laws. So Omar, the Prophet ﷺ, clearly in our religion, the prohibition of men wearing gold is a sumptuary law. And that's a clear sumptuary law. But Omar had sumptuary laws. So he prohibited eating meat every day in Medina when he was caliph. He said you could eat it every other day. And in the books of fiqh, they talk about, you know, the right of a woman to the amount of meat. And they literally, based on her socioeconomic status, they had how many days. So like a woman who's accustomed to that, at least once a week. One of the reasons why the meat was done on the Eids was because most people were what we would today call semi-vegetarians. Because meat was really expensive. And meat was also wealth. Because livestock, in all pre-modern societies, livestock is part of wealth. Right? It's like having gold or silver. So you don't want to like just dissipate all your wealth by eating all the time. And then also they shorn for the wool. I mean, there were also milk. There's other uses why they wouldn't eat meat, right? So he's saying it's the qarmun muhtalimun is like a stud in heat. And that's what it means. So qarm is like a fahal that yutrak lil-dirab. So it's only used to like these stud farms where they have stallions that are only used to basically produce fine animals. أو سبع ثاكلون, or like a predatory animal that's lost its offspring. Like you never want to mess with, if you kill the offspring of a bear in front of that bear, yeah, you better have 2 bullets in the, because an animal that loses its offspring, it's very angry. فيحتاج أن يسكنه دائما فيحتمي به ومنه. So he has to always be calming it down and to guard himself with it, from it. Both with it and from it. Because the quwwa ghadabiyya, he's using this for the example of the quwwa ghadabiyya, you need it for both. Right? It's going to guard you, but you have to guard yourself against it because it's dangerous. فهو معه كما قيل راكب الأسد يهابه الناس وهو في نفسه أهيب. The beautiful saying. So the man who's riding the lion, everybody's in fear of him, but he's the one that's most in fear because he's on the lion and he knows how dangerous it is. So you have this in the Asian tradition, the Taoist tradition, the idea of, leave mountain, embrace tiger, return to mountain. That's about conquering the soul. So the soul is used in some of the Asian traditions as the idea of, this is the nafs that you have to tame, like the lion tamer. You have to tame the lion. So he's saying you can ride it, your soul, but you should, and people will be amazed at it, but you should always be fearful of it because you never know when it's going to rear its head. You just don't know. And you can't trust it. I mean, Abu Bakr said, if I had 1 foot in Jannah and 1 foot outside, I still wouldn't feel safe until both were firmly planted. And, Ibn Mas'ud said, من كان يستن فليستن بالميت فإن الحي لا تؤمن عواقبه. Whoever wants to take a sunnah from dead people. Don't take it from the living because the living are still under examination. Right? The living are still under examination. So it doesn't matter who. I mean, we've had people, notable people, that left Islam, right? People that were teaching and people learned from them, and then they just left Islam. So nobody, as long as somebody's alive, we don't know. We ask for husn al-khatima, and we ask Allah, inshallah, those people, Allah illuminate their hearts and restore them to their sanity, because it's a tragedy when somebody, one of the companions who went to Ethiopia, he was alcoholic and he couldn't control his nafs, and so he ended up becoming a Christian so he could drink alcohol. But that's exactly it. It's more about appetites than anything else. People have unnatural appetites, and that will deviate them and take them away from the truth. So the third عن يساره هو الذي يأتيه بالمطعم والمشرب لكنه أرعن ملق قذر شبق كأنه خنزير أجيع فأرسل في جلة يأتيه أحيانا بأطعمة هنية وأحيانا بأطعمة خبيثة فيكرهه على تناولها فهو يحتاج أن يصابرهم حتى يقطع سفره فيبلغ أرضا مقدسة يشرق فيها النور وتشرب فيها النعجة والذئب من حوض واحد فيأمن فيها بوائقهم. So the third one is on his left. And this is the one who brings the food on the journey. He's bringing the food and the drink. But he himself he's stupid. He's ar'an. Like ru'unat an-nafs are the frivolities of the self. So the ar'an is the one who's engaged in frivolities. Maliqun, again he's obsequious. Qadirun, he's foul. He's cochino. He's dirty. Shabiqun, same thing. And then ka'annahu khinzirun. I mean, this is in rhetoric for those of you who are doing the the rhetoric. It's itnab, right? He's doing itnab. So he's the shabaq is the one who's got just heavy appetite. Shabiqun. So كأنه خنزير, he's like a pig who's hungry, who was made hungry. Like, you're not feeding him. And then he's put into the jalla, the sty, the pig sty. يأتيه أحيانا بأطعمة هنية. Sometimes they throw good food in the pigsty, and sometimes they throw foul food in it. So he's just forced, compelled to eat what's there. فهو يحتاج أن يصابرهم. So this one on the journey, it's necessary for him to placate them, to keep them until he finishes his journey and reaches the Holy Land. So this is the journey to the Ard Muqaddasa. يُشْرِقُ فِيهَا النُّورِ, where the light illuminates, and the sheep and the wolf will drink from the same bowl together. So all of the trials of the world. فَيَأْمَنُ فِيهَا بَوَائِقُهُم. And then he's free finally of the trials. So getting to the other side, knowing that you have these 3 travelers on your journey, and you just have to watch out for them. But this is the soul. That's why I'm calling this a Qur'anic anthropology, because it really is the study of the human being. He's really giving us an anthropology rooted in the Quran. You can see how he's rooting everything in the Quran. And then he says that he's free من حيلتي التي يرجى أن يسلم منها بها أن يسلط هذا البطش الزعر على هذا الأرعن القدر. And so then he's able to put this malicious thug over this stupid, this stupid foul one, حتى يزبره زبرا, so that he's constantly, zabrahu is like constantly keeping them in check. وأن يطفي غلو هذا الزعر التايح بخلابة هذا الأرعن المموه. And then he's able to put out the extremism of the za'ir, the malicious one, who's astray, right? With the ar'an mumawwah, with his deceptions. وَأَلَّا يَجْنَحْ إِلَى الْمُبَاهَةِ الْمُتَخَرِّصِ, and that he doesn't incline towards the mubahat al-mutakharris حتى يؤتيه موثقا من الله غليظا ثم يصدقه فيما ينهيه إليه. And he doesn't believe that the lying one, the mutakharris, until it brings something to verify from God, a strong covenant from God, in order to believe him in what he's telling him not to do or to avoid. فجعل الملك المباهت كناية عن الوهم. So he says the ملك المباهت is a metaphor for waham. So the quwwa al-wahima is one of the, it's the waham is the estimative, right? But it's related to, you have yaqeen, you have shak, and then you have waham. So waham is, it can create things in your mind that you think are true and they're not true. It's very important, this quality that the human mind has, yatawaham. It's important, but it's dangerous. That's what he's saying, because it can make the falsehood look true. It can do things if you're not careful with it. So that's what he's saying. So, and then the batash al-za'ar, the malicious thug, is the irascibility. And then the ar'an al-qadr al-malik, and the obsequious, stupid, foul one, is the shahwa. فَجَعَلَ الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَ عِبَارَ عَنْ دَارَ السَّلَامِ. And the Holy Land is the abode of Islam, of salam, the paradise. وذكر أن حيلته في أن يسلم منهم أن يدفع بعض هذه القوة ببعض دفع الشر بالشر. And so one of the strategies is to use one against the other by way of avoiding harm with other harm. Wallahu alam. And Allah knows best. How much time? Okay. So let me see if I can, this one's not too long. So كون الإنسان هو المقصود من العالم وإيجاد ما عداه لأجله. So this is the fact that the human being is intended by the world itself, and everything that was created other than him is for him. So this is a strong anthropic principle, right? He's basically arguing a strong anthropic principle that the whole of the universe is created for our species. And people can say, oh, well, why is all those galaxies, millions of... Well, the same is true if you go in. Like if you go in, you'll have we're actually at the midpoint. This is one of the things that Alexis Carrel, who won the Nobel Prize, one of the things that he pointed out. If you take the largest things in the universe, and you take the smallest things that we know, divide them by 2, you'll get the human being. So it goes both ways. And the thing about the human being, humans, we can travel in space in our minds, and we can go inside with our minds. I mean, that's what's unique about us. So, but it's also to show us, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقٍ أَمِ السَّمَاءِ, are you a greater creation or the heavens? Like it's also to show the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that His power is so vast. And Allah swears, لا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم. I swear by the positions of the stars. And if you but knew, you would know how vast an oath that is. Because it's so vast, all these galaxies. Allah swears by the positions of the stars. If you look at the Big Dipper, you'll see it looks like it's all on the same plane. Those are billions of miles away from one another. So Allah is swearing by the positions of the stars and telling us this is a vast oath, if you but knew. Now we know. So نُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. We will show them our signs. So this idea that we're not, that human being, this whole modern idea that, we're just this insignificant speck of dust in this little corner of some, relatively small galaxy, that we don't have a lot of significance. This is a complete lie. It's completely alien to reality. And so he's saying, no, don't believe that the human being is what المقصود من العالم إيجاده شيئا بعد شيء هو أن يوجد الإنسان فالغرض من الأركان أن يحصل منها النبات ومن النبات أن تحصل منه الحيوانات ومن الحيوانات أن تحصل الأجسام البشرية ومن الأجسام البشرية أن تحصل منها الأرواح الناطقة ومن الأرواح الناطقة أن تحصل منها خلافة الله تعالى في أرضه فيتوصل بإيفاء حقها إلى النعيم الأبدي كما دل الله تعالى عليه بقوله إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. So he says the whole purpose of this world and its creation bit by bit, little by little, is in order to bring the human being into existence. So the whole purpose of the elements is to produce vegetation. The purpose of vegetation is to produce animals. The purpose of animals is to produce bodies, human bodies. And the purpose of the human body is to be a vehicle for the soul, the rational souls. And for the rational souls to become the vicegerents of God in the earth. And by fulfilling that duty as the vicegerent of Allah in the earth, then you warrant eternal bliss. And this is what Allah indicates when He said, verily, I'm placing in the earth a vicegerent. وَجَعَلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى الْإِنسَانَ سُلَالَةَ الْعَالَمِ وَزُبْدَتَهُ. Allah has made the human being the sulala. It's coming from. It's the offspring. I mean, a salil is like a scion or an offspring, but sulala is it's the chain that brings you into existence. So you're the offspring of the whole world. Everything has conspired in the world to bring you into existence. And you are the zubda. You are the cream of creation. وَهُوَ الْمَخْصُوص بِالْكَرَامَةِ. And for this reason, you have been ennobled and dignified. لقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا. We have ennobled the children of Adam, and we have carried them on the land and in the sea, and we provided from all the good things, and we have preferred them over so much of the creation, a clear preference. وَجَعْلَ مَا سِوَاهُ كَالْمَعُونَةِ لَهُ. And He made everything in support of the human being. Everything is in support of the human being. The earth is turning, creating the Van Allen belts. The Van Allen belts are protecting us from the radiation. The radiation comes just to the right degree to produce enough vitamin D in us to keep us healthy. All these things, everything is here. And then He put everything on the earth for you. He subjugated the heavens and the earth to you. He put it all there for you. He gave us glue. He gave us cloth. He gave us leather. He gave us milk. He gave us all these different fruits. Allah has given us all these different things, and it's all provision for us. I mean, if you want to read a really interesting it's really a thought experiment almost, but it's called iPencil. And this man wrote it just to show you how miraculous just a pencil to come into existence is. That, we say only God could create a tree. Only God could make a pencil. And that's why Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَالِقُ كُلِّ صَانِعٍ وَصَنْعَتِهِ. Imam al-Bayhaqi says, Allah is the creator of every craftsman and the thing that he's making. So if you look just at a pencil, what did it take to make one pencil? Right? You have wood, you need wood. So there's people right now that grow wood for paper and things like that. But do you think that guy who's planting those trees is thinking about a pencil? He's not thinking about a pencil. And then those people need all these people to be supplying them with their needs, right? So they need all their equipment, and then they need also the food that comes to them so that they can work, right? So that's all that going on. And then where does the graphite come from? There's three major places. 70% of graphite comes from Turkey, China, and one other country. Can't remember. So then the graphite, and then it's a compound. It's not just graphite. So do you think those people that are harvesting the graphite, like they're thinking about making a pencil? They're just thinking about making some money selling graphite to whoever wants to buy graphite, because graphite has a lot of uses. And then the trucks that have to carry those logs. Who made those trucks to carry those logs? So there's all these people that are doing all these things. So were they thinking about a pencil when they made those trucks to specifically carry a log to the factory? And then the factory, they shave the thing. And then the pencil company that buys the wood to make the pencils, and then they put them in there. And then all those people that created all those machines to do that work. And on and on and on. You could just go on and on and on. So nobody planned to make a pencil. Somebody wanted to make a pencil, but he could not in any way, shape, or form have directed all those different people on this planet to enable him to make a pencil. And that's just a pencil, which is a miracle in and of itself to come into existence. That's what Adam Smith called the invisible hand. And Adam Smith was talking about God. He wasn't talking, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, they said, sa'iruna, like, fix the prices for us. He said, Inna Allahu al-musa'ir. Allah fixes prices. Allah fixes prices. The market is God's. All these things that are happening on this planet, all the things we're wearing, do you think they were thinking about you in the clothes you're wearing? That they were thinking about so-and-so in California is going to purchase this? That person's sewing that thing there? They're doing that for you. But who? Allah did it. And we're all helping one another. This is ta'awan. Like human beings are helping one another without even knowing it. That's one of the Mutanabbi says that. The Arab and the Bedou are helping one another without even realizing it. So all these things that come into the world, where did they come from? Who thought of them? You couldn't have put them all together. No one person could have thought of that. And that's why no one person could create a pencil. There's not one person that could do that. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that could do that. Allama bil qalam. He swore by the pen. Wal qalami wa ma yastarun. By the pen and what it produces. So this is life on earth. It's amazing. It's all wonder. That's what G.K. Chesterton said, that we're not perishing we're perishing for want of wonder, not for want of wonders. Because people don't marvel at all this stuff around them that's happening. It's all miraculous. I mean, COVID came and shut down the whole planet and everything just went. Like, how did it all keep going? Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayy said it's a proof God's running the world. Because everything got shut down and yet none of us starved to death. And if we do, we deserve it.